Hello and welcome to Volusia Magazine. I'm Amber Patterson. Today we'll talk about Florida Library Snapshot Day, the expedited screening procedures at Daytona Beach International Airport, and winter landscaping. Then finally, Community Information Director Dave Byron will sit down with his guest, Health Department Director Dr. Bonnie Sorenson, and they'll be chatting about the importance of flu vaccinations. Those segments, news, and more coming right up on Volusia Magazine. Stay tuned. Later this month, Votran will increase its prices. However, the fare is still a bargain. Beginning February 16th, riders of Votran, Volusia County's public transit system, will have to come up with a 25-cent increase in fares.
It's still a good way to get around town, and it's still not going to cost you much. $1.50 for the adult fare, 75 cents for the youth and disabled fare. The paratransit fares will slightly increase as well. They'll go from $2.50 for a one-way trip up to $3 for a one-way trip, but again, that's a door-to-door service. It's a good bargain to get people around town.
And a daily pass will be $3.50, an increase of 50 cents. This is Votran's first fare increase since 2007, and even with the increase, Votran fares will be below the rates charged by several other transit systems in Florida. For the last 5 years, Votran has set ridership records. In fiscal year 2011-2012, the system racked up 3.6 million boardings, a 6% higher than the previous year. Votran's budget is approximately $20 million and is funded by federal and state grants, fares, and $8.2 million from the county's general tax fund. In a move to help offset substantially higher operating costs, the Volusia County Council approved the fare increase last November after several town hall meetings and public hearings.
We did an evaluation of the cost associated with providing the service that we provide, and it became time to evaluate the fare that we were charging for our services. We determined, based on that review and that discussion with the Volusia County Council, that was something that we wanted to pursue and we needed to pursue at this time, and its expected result is to help us cover the increasing operation costs that we experience to provide the service that we provide.
The full fare will increase another 25 cents in 2015, and all fare mediums would increase proportionately. For more information, you can call 386-761-7700 in Daytona Beach, 386-943-7033 in West Volusia, or 386-424-6800 in Southeast Volusia, or you can just visit Votran.org. Selected passengers at the Daytona Beach International Airport now can benefit from the expedited passenger screening procedures put in place at the local airport by the Transportation Security Administration. These new federal risk assessment-based procedures will allow some passengers to avoid some of the time-consuming elements of the screening process now required of all passengers.
We now have expedited passenger screening here at Daytona Beach International Airport. What that means is, for people who are selected by the TSA, you'll have a little indicia on your boarding pass, and it will enable you to basically not have to take off your shoes, your belt, some other things that'll make going through Daytona much more easy for many travelers. But it's the first time it's been here, so we're very enthused about it, and we think our passengers are going to be enthused as well, because it's going to make travel through Daytona Beach International Airport easier than ever.
Eligibility for participation in the new screening procedures is based on information provided to commercial airlines by TSA on a flight-by-flight and passenger-by-passenger basis, and does not guarantee expedited screening procedures to eligible passengers at all times, including those passengers who have been enrolled in the Department of Homeland Security's DHS Trusted Traveler programs. However, many passengers will benefit, and the new capability could lead to a dedicated screening inspection line at some point in the future. Additional information on TSA's expedited screening procedures is available by visiting tsa.gov. For more information about Daytona Beach International Airport, you can visit flydaytonafirst.com. More than 11,000 people visited one of the libraries in the Volusia County Public Library System on January 22nd. That was the annual Snapshot Day, which chronicles a day in the life of libraries. The county's 13 library branches will join libraries across Florida in taking pictures and collecting statistics and comments showing how Floridians are using their libraries that day. Library Services Director Lucinda Coley says Snapshot Day provides a good picture of the range of services that local libraries provide.
We'll use all the information that we gather locally as well as statewide as we tell the story about public libraries and how they're used, as we advocate for state funding, advocate for local funding. We just want to give everyone a good picture of the importance of public libraries in our community and how they're being used, how those resources are being accessed.
Volusia's public libraries are highly responsive to the public's changing needs. Programs introduced in recent years include e-reader classes, computer workshops, and fitness programs. This in addition to ongoing events for children, teens, and adults. For example, here are some of the findings Volusia County recorded during this year's Snapshot Day. More than 11,000 people visited the county libraries and checked out more than 14,000 items. The reference librarians answered 2,090 questions. They assisted 40 job seekers, helped 87 people apply for government benefits, and helped 147 students with their homework. More than 650 adults and children took part in library programs and classes. More than 2,300 patrons used the library's computers, and more than 350 were taught computer skills. You can see the results from across the state by visiting the Volusia County Public Library System's website, volusialibrary.org, and clicking on About Us. Time to join correspondent Michelle Coates on the Business Beat for a look at something special here in Volusia County.
I'm Michelle Coates with the Business Beat. Florida's tourism industry is often thought of as theme parks and beaches, but the Florida State Park Service is an economic engine of its own. Here at Blue Springs State Park in Volusia County, estimated economic impact is $10 million annually.
Florida State Park System generated $55 million, supported 19,000 jobs, and had a $1.1 billion economic impact in the 2012-13 fiscal year, according to the Florida Park Service. Florida's parks and trail system includes 161 parks, 10 trails, nearly 800,000 acres, 100 miles of beaches, and more than 1,600 miles of multi-use trails that attract more than 25 million visitors a year. Much of that economic impact is contributed to ecotourism. Webster's dictionary defines it as the practice of touring natural habitats in a manner meant to minimize ecological impact. Nationally, ecotourism encompasses a wide range of outdoor recreation activities that contribute $730 billion annually to the nation's economy and supports nearly 6.5 million jobs across the United States. In Florida, ecotourism includes a diverse mix of activities, including cycling, camping, fishing, hunting, paddling, hiking, birding, visiting scenic byways, and other wildlife viewing. We spoke to Tim Bustos, Executive Director of the Florida Bicycling Association, about ecotourism.
It's a tremendous economic impact. I spent the last week leading a group of cyclists from throughout the country, mainly northeast states, who, among other things, want recreational opportunities that are warmer from where they are.
There are many visitors to the state in search of warmer opportunities to commune with nature. According to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, the combined attendance at Florida's state parks in 2010 exceeded any other attraction, while the national parks ranked 6th. The total spent on wildlife viewing in Florida in 2006 was $1.23 billion, with a total economic effect of $5.2 billion. Also, wildlife viewing creates over 51,000 jobs, almost as many as Walt Disney World.
And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. I know of one study that was done last year in Central Florida where there were, just from 3 trails alone, it provided an economic impact of over $50 million.
County officials don't track the economic impact of its parks and trails, but the attendance and usage of those parks and trails point in a positive direction. More than 1 million people visit Volusia County Parks and Trails each year to view nature's beauty and to participate in recreational programs. The offerings include nature and multi-use trails, camping, bird observation towers, fishing, fresh and saltwater boating, historic and archaeological sites, and sports and recreation centers. Volusia County's Parks, Recreation and Culture and Coastal Divisions manage more than 10,000 acres of park sites. These facilities include more than 40 local and district parks, boat ramps, fishing docks, and school park sites. There are 44 miles of trails in Volusia County today, and another 22 miles in different stages of development. In addition, trailheads have been built at DeBerry Hall Historic Site, Gemini Springs Park, Lake Monroe Park, Lake Beersford Park, Blue Springs State Park, and along Grand Avenue in Glenwood. In addition, Volusia County's approximately 50 miles of Atlantic coast beaches have a long history as a major destination for tourists from around the world. Volusia County's world-famous beaches attract millions of visitors each year.
Volusia County has some of the most beautiful parks and trails in the Southeast. It's a real ecotourism opportunity. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Michelle Coates with the Business Beat.
As many of us already know, this year was an unseasonably cold winter in Central Florida, and winter isn't over yet. Preparing our landscape for the cold months in Florida can be a challenge. Today, horticulturalist Joe Sewards will tell us about winter landscaping and how preparing our landscapes for the Florida winter can benefit our landscape year-round.
Hi, this is Joe Sewards, and this is Horticulture Today. What I'd like to talk to you about today is what to do in the landscape in the wintertime. Recently, we just had a cold snap here in Volusia County, and a lot of people had a lot of grief over whether or not their plants got damaged or not. And as I stand here today, the temperature is in excess of 70 degrees just a few days later, and that might give some of you the urge to go out into your landscape and start doing a bunch of things. What I want to tell you is you need to resist the urge to do very much in your landscape right now. Plants are dormant, they need to stay dormant, and we need to allow them to be dormant so as not to cause more damage as the threat of cold weather still exists. For example, here's a small patch of turf that was damaged by disease during the growing season. The homeowner decided to replace the diseased area with grass plugs, and they had begun to spread and grow, and now they're dormant just like the rest of the turf. Some people might get the urge to come out here and fertilize and water and maybe even plant some more plugs. That's not necessary this time of the year. This patch, even though it doesn't look particularly good right now, will be perfectly fine when warm weather returns in the spring. By the end of April, the beginning of May, this plot will be totally filled in, and you'll never know there was any bare ground here at all. So the key is the grass is dormant. Don't try to make it grow now because you run the risk of doing more damage when cold weather returns, and we all know that that's going to happen before the arrival of spring. Another example is herbaceous perennials and even some woody plants in the landscape. Many times cold weather will kill parts of the plant and leave the rest intact, like these blackberry lilies. They still have perfectly good foliage. The seed heads have died, and the urge will be to go back and do a lot of wholesale pruning on this in order to so-called clean them up. And again, you want to resist that urge, because if you prune these back too far, you will encourage the plant to put out new growth. New growth has no cold hardiness, so resist that urge. If you have to prune, only prune off damaged parts of the plant. Do not prune back into live tissue, because then that will stimulate the plant to start growing. We still have the threat of cold winter, and you might do more damage to your plants. So, get to know your plants. Know which plants need to be protected, which plants don't need protection. Be patient. Allow nature to take its course. Wait for spring. Warmer weather is on the way. That's when you can go in, clean things up, allow things to grow back, and you'll have a much happier and healthier garden. For Horticulture Today, I'm Joe Sewards.
It's time now to head into the studio to join our very own Community Information Director, Dave Byron, with his guest, Dr. Bonnie Sorenson, Director of the Volusia County Health Department.
Well, thank you, Amber, and hi, everyone. You know, after a slow start, this year's flu season is here in full force. There have been reports in Central Florida of a shortage of flu vaccine and questions as to whether it's too late to get a flu shot. So with that in mind, we thought we'd talk with our health professional, Dr. Bonnie Sorenson. She's the director of the Florida Department of Health in Volusia County. Dr. Sorenson, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dave.
So, you know, we're hearing reports now that people are really starting to get sick with the flu. What's the story in Central Florida and in Volusia County? I mean, are we really getting hit hard?
We are in the midst of our flu season. It certainly is peaking. It's fairly typical for the flu season to peak in January or February. So we're at full bore. This season is about the same as last season, but last season was significantly worse than the previous 3 seasons. So it's a little worse than it has been in the past, but the main I think issue this season, the main difference this season, is the H1N1 virus that's causing most of the illness.
Wow.
Remember back in 2009, the swine flu? Well, that virus, H1N1, has been floating around in the background all that time, but this year it's in the foreground.
Wow.
And as you may remember, back in 2009, that virus was particularly hurtful to the younger population rather than the elderly population. So that's what we're seeing this year. A lot of young people are becoming ill. We're hearing about that in the newspapers, particularly pregnant women who are being hospitalized, and a couple have died in Florida. So that's really, I think, the heightened awareness about the flu season this year.
But in Volusia County, I guess what I'm hearing you say in terms of the numbers, about average?
It's about average for a flu season. We are really actually considered still mild in Volusia County. And in Florida. The other states around us are ahead of us.
Wow,
they have felt the flu worse than we have. We will probably get there. Other states that had flu virus floating around very strongly are now sort of decreasing. So Florida's on the increase while some of the other states around us are on the decrease.
You know, there have been reports on television and in the news recently, Dr. Sorenson, about a shortage of flu vaccine. Is there any veracity to that? What's the story there?
It's not literally a shortage of vaccine. There was 135 million doses produced by the manufacturers this year, so there should be plenty for anyone who wants a flu vaccine. It's probably more a matter of maldistribution. The private doctors generally order less and run out quicker. Our local pharmacies oftentimes still have vaccine, so you may want to call ahead and find out whether the pharmacy that you're going to or the physician or health department still has vaccine in stock.
You know, you just talked about the H1N1, the swine flu. You know, each year when we talk about this, there seems like some new type of flu is on the horizon, or, you know, arrives and so forth. Any new flus other than the H1N1 that we need to be concerned about this year?
Well, every year the flu virus changes, which is why it's important to have a vaccine against which virus we think is going to be the most predominant that season. The H1N1 is the one that really is impacting younger people, so it's really important for the younger people to be aware of vaccine. The elder people are all very obedient and you know, religiously go out and find the flu vaccine early in the season and are generally fairly well protected. Younger folks, they're less apt to seek out a vaccine, but this year is, I think, a lesson learned that all of us are susceptible to the flu virus and need to be vaccinated.
What about the seriousness of the symptoms? They're pretty typical in terms of, or are people getting sicker this year?
I think it's pretty typical. Obviously, the folks who have medical conditions such as lung problems or heart disease tend to get sicker than those who are otherwise healthy.
Right.
The younger folks, though, seem to be suffering. The pregnant women, the younger folks that have medical conditions, that's why we're hearing so much about it. So they are generally sicker.
Young people can't take it, can they, Dr. Sorenson?
That's the way it goes. We get stronger with age.
Hey, let's talk about a kind of a myth. And the myth is that you can get sick from getting a flu shot, and therefore you shouldn't get a flu shot. I know you don't support that.
No, it's impossible to get the actual flu virus from a flu shot because there's no flu virus in the flu shot. It's just particles of flu virus. But on the other hand, folks do have side effects sometimes of having the flu shot. Folks can feel red, see redness or tenderness where they receive the flu shot. They can develop a little fever, a little soreness and achiness, and actually that's a good sign. That's actually a sign of your immune system reacting to the vaccine, and that's a good sign that you are going to be immune to the virus. But those symptoms maybe feel a little bit like flu. People misinterpret that they have gotten the flu from the vaccine when in reality it's their immune response to the vaccine.
And you've impressed upon me that not only to get a flu shot this year, but if you get one every year, they kind of, layman's terms, compound the effectiveness.
They kind of build up on each other, yes. Those who've had flu shots in the past are somewhat protected, but every year a booster is a great idea because the flu virus changes every year and the new vaccine tries to cover. And this year's vaccine is very well matched with the virus that's floating around, so this year's vaccine is very effective. And
again, we've talked about this in the past, but those people that seem to be more prone or more vulnerable to the flu, obviously people with compromised immune systems, typically the elderly. One of the things you were saying the other day, babies are particularly vulnerable.
Yes, the very young and the very old are generally always susceptible to influenza, but young, babies less than 6 months old can't even receive the vaccine because the vaccine's not approved. But if mom, while pregnant, gets a vaccine, that not only protects mom from the flu virus, but the antibodies that mom produces cross the placenta, enter the baby, and the baby is born with immunity to the flu virus.
Interesting.
So it's a very good idea for pregnant women to receive the vaccine not only for themselves but also to protect their baby for the first 6 months of the baby's life.
So let me repeat what I think I just heard you say. If you have a child 6 months or older, they should get a flu shot.
Yes, everyone over the age of 6 months should be getting flu vaccines every year.
A lot of us don't particularly care for needles. A lot of people have a real fear of needles and so forth. I get my flu shot every year. It's really not a bad shot in terms of shots. And you were telling me that there's actually a different type of shot now that doesn't really penetrate, and it's almost painless.
Yes, exactly. Each year we're getting kind of new improved vaccines. And this year is the first year we have what's called an intradermal vaccine. Instead of being stuck in the arm in the muscle, it actually is just a prick under the skin, and it's just as effective and provides good protection against the flu virus. So if you happen to be needle shy, it's a good alternative.
Let's talk about how you get the flu and what you can do to help yourself from maybe not getting the flu.
Well, vaccine obviously is the best protection, number one. But even if you have been vaccinated, or especially if you have not been vaccinated, then certainly staying home if you're sick, staying away from neighbors and relatives and crowds, but also avoiding crowds when there's a lot of virus floating around in our community. The other unfortunate reality about influenza virus is it's a fairly tough virus, and when people sneeze on their hands and then touch a doorknob or touch a surface or touch a grocery cart handle, that virus is transferred to that surface, and the virus can live for a couple of hours while on that surface. So if a person who's influenza sneezes into their hand and then touches surfaces, someone coming behind them can then pick up that virus in their hand. And if the hand then touches the eye or the nose or puts food in the mouth, then a person can transfer that virus off of their hands into their body. So very meticulous hand washing will protect you from not only flu virus but many other viruses during this season.
Right. So you think you're coming down with the flu, you get hit pretty hard. Can you mitigate the effects of it by perhaps going to the doctor real quickly, or medications or that sort of thing?
Yes, there is an antiviral medication that's available that if it's given in the first 48 hours of symptoms, it can actually lessen the impact of the influenza. So folks, particularly folks who have medical conditions and who know if they get influenza will be seriously ill, need to be in contact with their own provider quickly, describe the symptoms, go see the provider, and if it's thought that they are coming down with influenza, they can be given those antivirals to try to lessen the impact.
Generally, how long can you expect to be sick with the flu, Dr. Sorenson?
Generally, you know, it's going to be a few days. It's not
Right.
like a head cold where
Right.
you feel bad in the afternoon and the next day you can go to work. You can kind of work through it. Most people who get the flu feel very well in the early part of the day, and then by midday they feel like they've been hit by a Mack truck and they
Right.
can't move. They're in bed. They're missing
Right.
work. They're really disconnected from their family, as well as spreading it around to anyone who's been close to them
Right.
in the time when they become sick. So it's a serious illness.
Rest and fluids?
Fluids, chicken soup, you know, anti-inflammatories, Tylenol, aspirin. Even some people think vitamin C helps
Right.
get over those kinds of viruses.
People want more information, Dr. Sorenson, to try to learn more. Where can they get more information?
Well, certainly on our website, www.volusiahealth.com. We have lots of information, or cdc.gov has an extraordinary amount of information on flu and antivirals and vaccines, etc.
Well, Dr. Sorenson, thank you very much for sharing the information with us. Obviously a very relevant topic this time of the year, so thanks for sharing the information.
Thank you.
Again, our guest today, Dr. Sorenson, recommends everyone get a flu shot and get one now. And with that, Amber, we'll go back to you.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you too for watching Volusia Magazine. If you have any questions about the show, feel free to give us a call at any of the numbers you see listed here, or you can log on to volusia.org and click on the News tab at the top of the screen to find us. Incidentally, you can find the County Council's meeting calendar there too. You can use volusia.org to find out about meeting dates, workshops, topics of interest, activities, and how you can become involved. And we hope you won't forget to listen to Volusia Today. That's Volusia County Government's weekly public radio program. Volusia Today airs every Tuesday and Sunday mornings on the local radio stations you see on your screen. For Volusia Magazine, I'm Amber Patterson, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.